Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our latest episode of Musical Musings. We air this program every Wednesday at 1 p.m., and we broadcast it from Rajamakan, University of Technology, Peranakan. I will be bringing this program to you in two parts. For the first part, I will be talking a little bit about an artist and a song by them. We'll just talk about the artist a little bit, the background, also the background of the song and its main theme, what it's all about. Then we will go ahead and listen to the song. After that, we will get to the second part of the program where we will analyze the lyrics. And we will especially look at anything that may be difficult to understand, any difficult vocabulary, slang, idioms, anything like that. Then we'll get to the news and the latest updates from the university as usual.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Gary Gray. I am your host for the Musical Musings program. I'm an American English teacher here at Rajamakan University of Technology, Peranakan, and I've been teaching here for about 7 or 8 years. About 7, going on 8 though, almost up to 8. All right, for today's episode, we are going to be doing the song Crimson and Clover by Joan Jett. All right, so first, before we get to the song, we like to talk about the artist. So Joan Jett, that's not her real name, that's just her stage name. But she was born in 1958 in Pennsylvania in the United States. She actually founded or co-founded, she didn't do it herself. She had, I believe it was the drummer who she founded the band with. She founded the band The Runaways in 1975, who she performed with until 1979. The Runaways were somewhat popular. They toured, they were touring in Britain, so they did some world touring in Britain and the U.S. And then in 1979, once they broke up, she formed Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Now, it's a little tricky. Is it Joan Jett and the Blackhearts as a band, or is Joan Jett a solo artist? The Blackhearts was her backing band. And most people think of Joan Jett as a solo artist. But sometimes, on some records, in some performances, it is referred to as Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, as if it's an entire band. Now, of course, there is a backing band. There are people playing instruments, of course. But a lot of times backing bands for solo artists, we don't call them like a band, because maybe a lot of them might change from time to time or whatever. For example, last week we did Eric Clapton. And Eric Clapton plays the guitar in a lot of his own songs, but it's not like there are no other instruments. It's not like there's never a drum or a keyboard or a bass guitar. Of course there are. Of course there are those instruments sometimes in his songs. He doesn't play them. So there's a band playing with him. But it's not Eric Clapton and whoever. No, it's just Eric Clapton. He's a solo artist. So whether it's Joan Jett or Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, that changes sometimes. Anyway, they formed in 1979. Now, one thing I wanted to say about Joan Jett. It's something I mentioned with Eric Clapton last week, and it's even more prominent with Joan Jett, is that most of her songs are covers. Certainly not all of them. There are some songs that are her own, but most of her songs are covers. And that includes today's song, Crimson and Clover. It also includes her most famous song, I Love Rock and Roll. She first heard that song in 1976 when she was touring England. It was on TV being performed by a band called The Arrows. And she heard it many times over and over because it was repeated on TV. And so she picked up that song and decided to perform it. So when we call many of the songs her songs, like when we talk about I Love Rock and Roll being a song by Joan Jett, it sounds like we're saying that's her song, because we say when it's by her, it sounds like it's their song. What we mean when we're saying that is we mean that it's her interpretation of the song, her vision for the song, because she didn't really write most of these songs, including, again, the song we're going to do today, Crimson and Clover. We'll talk about that and where that comes from a little bit more later when we get to talking about the song, but that's another one she didn't write. And, that's fine. That sounds like we're knocking someone down by saying that, oh, well, they didn't write that song, or they weren't even the original singer of that song. No. That's one thing a lot of folks don't always know, unless you're really into music, is that a lot of songs are either covers, or even if they're the first artist to record it, it may not have been written by that artist. There are a ton of very famous songs like that. And a lot of people don't even realize it. Last week I mentioned Whitney Houston performing her most famous song. Sorry, why does the name of the song escape me? But it says her most famous song, Whitney Houston's most famous song. Oh, I Will Always Love You. Gosh. Her song, I Will Always Love You, is a cover. A cover song means a song originally performed by someone else. And that song was performed by Dolly Parton a long time ago. And, Dolly Parton doesn't even write her own songs. So most of the time, I don't even think she wrote that song. In fact, her version might even be a cover. I'm not sure. So Whitney Houston's might be a cover of a cover. But I'm pretty sure Dolly Parton didn't write the song. So it's a cover from an artist who was singing a song written by someone else. We also, in a previous episode, featured a song called Lady by Kenny Rogers. That was also written by someone else. That was written by his good friend Lionel Richie. I'm trying to think. I know Lionel Richie performed it with him a lot. I'm pretty sure Lionel Richie performed it by himself as well. So I'm not 100% who performed it first. I'm pretty sure Kenny Rogers did it first because Lionel Richie wrote it for him because they were good friends. We've featured Lionel Richie on this program as well. Very talented artist. I've actually seen him personally in concert. I always liked him. I liked him even more after seeing him in concert. I was really surprised how good he was. So really talented artist. But again, he wrote the song Lady for Kenny Rogers. And when most people hear that song, they think Kenny Rogers. Some people will think Kenny Rogers and Lionel Richie because they have had a couple of famous performances where they did it together. But it's generally thought of as a Kenny Rogers song. It's one of Kenny Rogers' biggest hits. Written by Lionel Richie. He didn't write it. Kenny Rogers didn't write it. So we shouldn't get too caught up in the fact that Joan Jett didn't write most of her songs, or that she wasn't even the first performer. They were covers. That's fine. Most artists do that. That's very normal in the music industry. So I go through all of that because I just don't want you to think that I'm knocking Joan Jett down because of the fact that, oh, she's not creative. These aren't her own songs. That's normal. That's normal in the music industry. Okay. So just realize that when I say that these are songs by Joan Jett, I just mean she's performing these songs. They might have been covers. They might have been written by someone else. Whatever. That's fine. Okay. Anyway, so she's been performing solo since 1979. She's still performing today. So born in 1958. What does that make her? About 67 now? So, or 60, well, she probably hasn't had her birthday yet, so she's 66. 66, getting up there, getting a little older, but since we mostly do older music on this program, it's actually a little younger than most of the people we do. I mentioned before we did Eric Clapton last week. He's turning 80 this year. So this is more than 10 years younger than him. So she's a little bit younger than a lot of the people we do, but she's still been around a long time. Solo since 1979. And 11 of her songs have made the Billboard Hot 100 in the U.S. Now, what is the Billboard Hot 100? Well, that's kind of the standard chart that most people use to judge the popularity of a song. And that chart lists the top 100 songs every week. And 11 of her songs have gotten there. So she's been quite successful. And I mention that because, again, a lot of her songs are covers, so you might think, well, they're not going to be that popular. She also went through a period, I want to say in the late 80s and early 90s, where things were not going that well for her. She's kind of bounced back a little since then. Obviously, since she's an older performer now, it's not like she's as popular as she was during her height. But, I mean, it was really bad for her for a short time. She even came to my university one time, and apparently I didn't go to the concert, but apparently a lot of people didn't go to the concert. It was almost empty, and it wasn't a good concert, and she was really struggling, and that was kind of in the early 90s. But she kind of bounced back since then. But I mentioned, but that's why I mentioned why she had so many hits there, because, again, cover songs. Her height of popularity was kind of brief. She really faded badly in the late 1980s and early 90s and everything like that. So it may seem like she's marginally popular. No. She was really popular. Just didn't last very long. Like I Love Rock and Roll, definitely her biggest song. The song we're doing today, Crimson and Clover, certainly not as big as I Love Rock and Roll, but one of her biggest songs. I don't know if it was her second. Bad Reputation was really popular. Not one of my favorite songs by her, but as far as most people go, very popular song. So it might have been more popular than Crimson and Clover. But anyway, 11 songs made the charts in America. So let's talk about one of them. One of them was Crimson and Clover. So let's talk about this song. And this, again, is one of her covers. It was actually written in 1968. So obviously she didn't write it. She was only 10 at that time. It was written by Tommy James and the Shondells. And actually several other groups have also covered that song. So it's a very popular song. Was Joan Jett's version as popular as the original? Probably not, but it was awfully close. It depends on your perspective. If you just look at where it was on the charts, no. But it did get really close, so it's a really good version. The original version was super popular, though, so it's hard to beat. You're putting the standard way up there. The original version hit number 1 and stayed there for like 16 weeks. It wasn't out number 1 for 16 weeks. That would be unbelievable. It remained in the chart for 16 weeks, but it did hit number 1. So, you can't beat number 1. Hard to do much better than that. And Joan Jett's version hit number 7. Well, that's still really good. But I would even say it's possible that her version was more popular. And why do I say that? 7, certainly below number 1. Historically in the music industry, there have been periods that have been stronger for music and periods that have been a little bit weaker for music. The early to mid 1980s is probably one of the strongest periods for music, as far as the number of really great bands and artists that were out there. It's one of the strongest periods probably ever. And so there's going to be more competition. It's going to be harder to get to number one. So number 7 is probably better than it sounds. Like modern music, really, honestly, I don't want to be negative towards modern music, but really you don't see the same thing. The kind of breadth of talent that's out there is not as good. So it's too corporate, so a lot of it's too similar. Like, for example, a lot of really pop-style bands, they have their music all written by the same group of people. There's like these not executives that aren't going to write the music, but there's songwriters employed by these corporate executives, and they're writing the music for all of these different bands. It's kind of pathetic, actually, and there's a lot of that going on now. So back in the 1980s, it was really competitive. So number 7 probably sounds better than it does. But I would probably still have to say that the original version was a little more popular for 2 reasons. First of all, the gap between number 1 and number 7 is still kind of big. So even if number 7 is underestimating Joan Jett's version, what are you going to say? It's the equivalent of number 4, number 3? I don't know. That's all just random guesswork. Who knows? But it's probably not going to get all the way up to number 1. The other thing is, the 1960s were also a very big time for music. So, there was also a lot of competition then. So was the competition in the early 80s more? I don't know. So I'd probably have to say the original version was more popular, but Joan Jett's was still extremely popular. So it's one of her best songs, peaking at number 7. All right. So again, very popular song. And it's a really simple song. It's actually very short. It's really probably a terrible song for me to pick for a program like this, where we are supposed to be analyzing the lyrics. What lyrics? There's like 2 very short verses and a very short chorus, which repeats over and over and over. In fact, that's part of the chorus. It says, crimson and clover, over and over, over and over again. So there's not much here. But we've had a couple of songs like this lately, including last week's song, which was a little more involved than this, but still pretty short and easy. But as I tell you, as I've told you in those weeks, I also like to introduce you to good songs. I like this. This is my favorite song by Joan Jett. I wanted to introduce Joan Jett to you. So, we're doing this song. Okay? All right. So it's very simple song. And it's about being interested in dating someone, wanting to meet them, that sort of thing. I will tell you, since the second part's going to be a little short, I'll explain this in the second part. But I do think it's kind of about high school sweethearts kind of wanting to meet. Well, then maybe they're not sweethearts if they don't meet and fall in love. But it's about high school love of a high school person wanting to meet someone else, wanting to meet someone to start dating them or whatever, for romance, for romantic purposes. And I will explain in the second part when we talk about the lyrics to the song why I think it's about high school, the high school love. It has to do with the name of the song. All right, so let's go ahead and get to the song then. As always, for those of you joining by YouTube, we cannot embed the video, so you will see a link in the upper part of the screen where you can click on that to go get the video for this song. After the video is done playing, you can just back to this video to get the second part of our program where we will analyze the lyrics. For anyone else listening any other way, we can embed the actual music. So everyone else, you should be able to listen just fine. Let's get to the song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome back. All right, that was Crimson and Clover by Joan Jett. And that song is basically about being interested in someone. Now, before we get to the actual lyrics, which, as I said in the first part of our program, are actually quite short. So we talked a lot in the first part of the program. This second part's going to be kind of short. So we're going to take this moment then to explain why I think this is about like high school students being interested in each other. So this is kind of about your first romantic encounter, you have a crush on someone when you're in high school, something like that. I think it's about that. Well, first of all, in 1968, when the original version of the song came out, that's kind of where a lot of these type of songs were geared to anyway. But the basic idea for the song came to the writer of the song when they were actually at a high school football game. And that's actually where the name of the song comes from. Because the name of the song, even though it's repeated in the song, seems meaningless. Crimson and Clover, Crimson, what does that mean? Crimson and Clover. Crimson and Clover, over and over. What does that mean? That doesn't seem to mean anything. We're at a football game. One of the teams was wearing red. One of the teams was wearing green. Crimson is like a shade of red. Clover, we don't usually use it this way, but it can be, and it is in this case. Clover is used as a shade of green. It's the colors of the two teams that were playing against each other. Crimson and Clover. It's a high school football game. That's kind of the setting for the song, basically. Okay, so let's get to the lyrics then. Now I don't hardly know her, but I think I could love her. So again, doesn't this sound like high school love? You don't even know the person. Maybe they're in your classroom, but they have a different group of friends, so you don't talk to them very often. But just seems nice. And with high school love, a lot of times it's about infatuation because maybe they're pretty or something like that. But you think it's love. So I don't hardly know her, but I think I could love her. I mean, that sounds very much like high school. Okay, Crimson and Clover. When she comes walking over, now I've been waiting to show her. Okay. Now that line is a little bit confusing. That second line there, now I've been waiting to show her. Waiting to show her what? It's not really clear, but you're probably going to... But what it probably means is the person singing the song wants to show her either how he feels or something that's going to impress her, wants to make an impression on her so that she'll like him. I guess it's a him. I don't know. We have Joan Jett singing the song, so it's a little A little confusing what the genders are here, but that's what I think that line means. When it says waiting to show her, it just means waiting to show her that he's interested in her, or waiting to impress her so that she remembers him. Okay? Crimson and clover over and over. Okay? Then we get to the second verse. This is what I say. It's a very short song. Second verse is the last one. My, such a sweet thing. Okay, when we say someone is sweet, it can be used two different ways. If it's like a parent talking to their kid, I mean, they'd usually probably say sweetheart, but they may say, oh, they're so sweet. If you're talking about a kid, it usually means they're kind, they're polite, they're nice. If you're saying that, a lot of times it just means that someone is kind or nice. But in a setting like this and in a song like this, it's more like they think she's sexy. So it's a little more... I don't want to say it's bad. I guess it's nice. I guess it's still a compliment if someone thinks you're sexy. But you'd prefer for someone to see the inside of you. So it's not... It's not quite as nice as what the word sweet usually means. So, again, this is probably that kind of shallow, kind of teenager type love. Again, so this again sounds like high school type love. Okay? My, such a sweet thing. I want to do everything. Okay. I want to do everything. That could sound naughty. Remember, the song was originally written in 1968. So, it might mean that they started getting a little bit kind of implying things, suggesting things in songs around that time. But it could just mean hold hands, kissing. That could be everything. So don't think that this is some naughty song, means bad things. No. Now, when Joan Jett sang it, because that was 20 years or 15 years later, yeah, she probably meant more than that when she sang it. And that's also why it's a heavier song. It's a harder song when she sang it. The old version is really soft and sweet. Crimson and clover, over and over. Well, the chorus in this song is still fairly soft and sweet, but it's definitely a stronger song when Joan Jett did it. So, yeah. The meaning is probably a little heavier here, too. So that is probably what she means there. So, my, such a sweet thing, I want to do everything. What a beautiful feeling. Okay. So nothing really confusing there. And honestly, that is it. There's really not much to explain here because then it gets to the chorus again and it just goes crimson and clover over and over, crimson and clover over and over. Does that over and over. All right? And that's it. That's all there is to the song. So again, really, this might be the simplest song we've ever done on this program. Again, sometimes I just want to introduce you to an artist. I like Joan Jett. This is my favorite song by her. So this is the song we've done. But it's one of the simplest ones. There's nothing too tricky here. The most confusing thing is, what in the heck is Crimson and Clover? Why is that in here? We're talking about colors, red and green. These are the two football teams, the colors of the two football teams that were playing against each other when the writer of this song wrote the song. or thought of the song. I don't know if he actually wrote the song while he was sitting there at the football game, but when the song came to his mind, he was sitting there watching a football game. It was a high school football game. And you can see by the words here, even though there aren't a lot of words, this does sound like a high school sort of love. And there were a lot of songs that wrote about that type of thing back in 1968 when the original version was written at that football game. So that's really what this song seems to be about. It's about, and presumably then it would be a guy singing the song, even though Joan Jett sings it. So it's about a guy seeing a girl who he's kind of like, oh, wow, isn't she sexy, and kind of falls in love with that girl, or thinks it's love. It's probably not really love, since as the first line says, he doesn't hardly know her. I don't hardly know her. Yeah, he doesn't even know the girl. Okay, but that's it. That's the end of the song. Okay, so at the end of, when we finish up a song, I do like to tell you about some other songs by that artist, in case you like this song. What other songs to go listen to by that artist? So for Joan Jett, I've already mentioned a couple to you. I Love Rock and Roll and Bad Reputation. I will tell you that I Love Rock and Roll is almost certainly her number one song. Bad Reputation is up there. Honestly, it's not one of my favorites by her, but it is one of her most popular ones. She also did Dirty Deeds, which is actually a cover of another group that we've done. We didn't do that song by them, but Dirty Deeds is an AC/DC cover. We've done AC/DC before. And that is a song by them, a heavy metal band. Another good song by her is I Hate Myself for Loving You. That one's... I don't know if I want to say it's really that much of a different style for her, but I don't know. To me, it sounds like a little bit of a different style from her. Sometimes I like that. Sometimes I don't. When a band kind of changes their style, goes a different way, sometimes I think it doesn't work. It sounds too, I don't know, too fake, like they tried too hard. Sometimes I do think it works. There's a very famous example with the band Kiss, where they tried that one time. And the band hated it because they thought it didn't work. The public loved it. Ended up being one of their most popular songs. So sometimes it's hard to even know if it works. And that one, after all these years, I Hate Myself for Loving You, I still haven't decided. I don't think it's a bad song. It's worth checking out. So check out those few songs. I Love Rock and Roll, Bad Reputation, Dirty Deeds, I Hate Myself for Loving You. And the song we did today was Crimson and Clover. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. Please stay with us, and also don't forget to tune back in next week for another great song. Also, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Musical musings.